Assalamualaikum and hi. Okay, today we will talk or present about biodiversity issue that we have choose for this issue. That is Pacific Northwest salmon species has lost 2/3 of its genetic diversity. Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce to you all of my member group. The first one is me, Resedesi binti Bahar. Next is Umi Rukia binti Abdullah, Sharifah Nur Najwa binti Syed Alwi, and the last one is Nurul Najiha binti Ahmad Mohid. Next. Okay. In this issue, we will cover about the first one is history, second is problem, third is effect, and the last one is restoration method or management. I will cover about history. The first one is according to a new study, Chincoat salmon and Ionic Pacific Northwest species that support a major fishery industry and indigenous traditions have lost up to two-thirds of their genetic diversity over the past 7,000 years. Scientifics also warn that the loss could make it difficult for the species to deal with the global warming and the ocean's acidifications, change in the environment that are already affecting the fish today. And the unique point or the unique viewpoint on why our area is so vital for salmon, it because of the indigenous people in our region and the delicious food they provide are significant, but they also have a serious effect on our entire ecosystem. In their native river stream, junior life salmons are hatched and they are tiny suckers, so they can go out to the oceans and get tall. Based on the historically, there are at least 10 to 16 million fish annually returns adult salmon to the Columbia Basin. Currently, fewer than 5% of historical white salmon are and still had stock return to our river and stream without the northwest. So in here, this salmons was under the Federal Endangered Species Act. That is 15 separate salmon and steelhead stored as list in Washington state. And the last one is the implications of such salmon means that the ecosystem has a domino effect. And the presence of wild salmon and steelhead support more than 155 other fish and wildlife populations. Okay, next. That's all from me. Next presentation will be conducted by my friend. Okay, Umi Rukia.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Umi Rukia binti Abdullah. My matric number is 199384. I'm from Group 4 and I will continue on the presentation on problems. So what is the problems that lead to this issue? Okay. So, firstly is genetic diversity is often key to enabling a species to adapt to changing environmental conditions. So, in salmon, for example, some individuals or populations might carry genes that make them less susceptible to new disease or warming seas, which enabling the species to survive the loss of other genetic strains. So this explain about the importance of genetic diversity and why genetic diversity is important because it enables species to adapt to changing environmental conditions. So for this issue, the salmon the salmon population keep declining. Okay, so next in Chinese salmon, part of the diversity loss is undoubtedly the result of an overall decline in Chinook populations. So as you can see from the late 1880s through the early 1920s, as much as 11 million kilograms of Chinook were harvested each year. So the end of the result, the number has dropped to about 2 million kilograms per year today. But roughly half of these fish originate in hatcheries that release fingerlings that are far more genetically similar than wild population. So this biodiversity issue of the Chinese salmon is something we need to worry about because the salmon species itself brings benefits to us. Um, but it kept declining as on the slide from 1880s until now. The genetic diversity kept declining. So this is something we have to take action for the issue. Then um, so next slide explain the bar graph on the decreasing of the Chinook population. So the Chinook, based on the bar graph, the Chinook salmon populations are down to 60% since the Pacific Salmon Commission began tracking salmon data in 1984. So the number of Chinook from 1984 until 2010, it kept declining. So the total abundance of Chinook has been decreasing since 1984. The abundance means the number of Chinook caught plus the number of Chinook returning to Sandwich Sea rivers. So we look further to next slide. Uh, what is the factors contributed to the loss? So uh, the problem is the China population is keep declining. The genetic diversity is keep declining. So what is the factors contributed to the declining? So firstly is stream habitat loss. Stream habitat loss, which the diversity loss um, is because the water diversion for agriculture. So when there's a water diversion, the salmon um, could not um, could not um, could not to adapt could not adapt to changing of the river. So next factor is overfishing. Overfishing is something common because the fisher the fisheries uh, caught the salmon um, for a quite for a quite large number than the quota. So the third factors is dams. Um, Based on study, there are more than 400 dams construction in Columbia River Basin, which these dams prevent the salmon from reaching half of the river, half of the river system's spawning habitat. So they cannot reach their habitat, and that's why it kept declining. So last factors is the release of millions of fingerlings from hatcheries. So basically this diversity loss could be problematic as fish populations try to adapt to changing river and ocean conditions brought on by climate change and ocean acidification. So next, I will pass to my next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I am Sharifah Nur Najwa binti Selvi and today I'm going to present about the effects of decline of salmon diversity. Firstly, it will affect the ecosystem because a loss of salmon means loss of nutrients and it will cascade through all the ecosystem and especially the decline of animal species. Um, for information, more than 135 other fish and wildlife populations benefit from the presence of wild salmon and steelhead from southern resident orca whales, which are at a 30-year population low to eagles, wolves, bear, otter, coyotes, seals, and sea lions. And Bogart 2018 stated that the federal government declared southern resident orca off our northern coast to be among 8 species most likely to go extinct without dramatic action in 2015. And just in the last 2 years, 7 whales have died. And this is because lack of Chinook salmon has been strongly implicated as the main cause of the decline. And uh, through this slide, we can see that salmon play a big role in order to sustain all of these species. And next, for the plants, anadromous Pacific salmon provides subsidies of marine derived nutrients and energy to freshwater and riparian habitats where they spawn and die. And the decline of salmon diversity impact the diversity of the plants also because some plants fed by salmon like yarrow and aster have bigger flowers with bigger leaves, and these bigger flowers may attract more pollinator, helping diversity to flourish. And if salmon disappear from some streams or perhaps never to return, the diverse communities that depend on them will be poorer. And the last one is it will affect the landscape because spawning salmon and generating landscape. Each species of salmon can influence the elevation and slope of alluvial bedrock stream watersheds over geologic time, and that this influence vary depending on spawning location, on which the fish select based on the availability of suitably sized gravel, and this the decline of the salmon will change the shape of the bedrock of the watersheds in which they live. And according to the recent study that modeled the evolution of this watershed over several million years, and um, London Cook, also the author of Upstream Searching for Wild Salmon from River to Table, also said that um, salmon are the keystone in the Pacific Northwest. They have shaped our landscape as much as the glaciers and volcanoes. So you can see that from this quote, we can see like how important the salmon are to the landscape. So I think that's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is Nurul Najee Hamid Ahmad Mohid. So I will continue with the restoration methods. The first method is by releasing millions of fingerlings from hatcheries into waterways throughout the Pacific Northwest. These hatchery fish more genetically similar than wild salmon populations. Second method, by limiting or eliminating harvest of the rent, protecting water quality or reducing water extraction for human consumption, and protecting the habitat. Because, for example, in the last 20 years, Washington State Fisheries, in cooperation with local tribes, has decreased the Puget Sound salmon harvest by as much as 90%. The third method is simulating rain upstream with pulsing. It is a method of attracting salmon upstream, where dam water is released at certain times to encourage salmon to migrate upstream. This release of cold dam water stimulates rain from the mountains and attracts the salmon upstream. Most recently, this has been successful on the Mokulam River, which recently experienced its fifth largest salmon run in 74 years. Next is proactive sanctuary strategy, which it aims to preserve the stream habitats with particularly high values where areas considered as salmon strongholds. These high-value basins are irreplaceable and must be protected now while they are still mostly pristine. These basins or strongholds in this category are expected to be able to sustain themselves for the next 100 years. And the last method is headwaters to the sea strategy. It is a new conceptualization of salmon habitat conservation, posited that we must protect the most intact or valuable drainage first by working from the headwaters downstream to create a continuous corridor of protected habitat. The aim is to create a series of intact and diverse in terms of life histories, genetics, and species of Pacific salmon population in full basin sanctuaries, and to ensure the maintenance of functional habitat connectivity from the headwaters to the estuary, where it helps to promote diversity in the population by providing several localized spawning locations. So to sum up, restoration is more complicated than conservation, and it has many meanings in river restoration at large. Salmon habitat must be fixed and monitored before we can even begin to think about conserving and protecting these magnificent creatures, because salmon are a very resilient species, but human causes are driving them to the brink of disaster as we continue to invade their habitat space. So that's all from our group. Thank you.